Hey guys, Christina here, and if you followed my last few videos, you've heard me mention a vacation that our family went on. It was the first vacation in about 7 years. It was more than just like 1 or 2 nights here or there that our family has taken. And I had planned to share some film and some videos while we were there, but I kind of was just really enjoying being with my kids and my family and not filming, and so I didn't. But I did want to share an overview. Because if you're thinking of going to Vancouver Island, which is where we went, some kind of places to visit or maybe some places to skip, as well as my kids like to watch these videos, so I thought I'd put some pictures in and they can watch this video too. Hi kids! So I grew up in Victoria. The ocean was a huge part of my life growing up. My husband grew up on an island as well. And so living in Alberta, our kids we really don't know the ocean. The last time we were in Victoria was about 8 years ago. So our kids we had 3 kids, 3 and under, maybe 4 and under, I think 3 and under. So they were really little, they didn't remember it. And my husband and I just had this sense that we wanted our kids really desperately to know the ocean, to know what it sounded like, what it felt like, what it smelled like, how it worked, and the kind of the creatures. And we're gonna be studying some of that this year in our school. And so we thought it was just the perfect opportunity and time to go. Now we're about, I want to say about 11 hours to the Vancouver ferry terminal from the area that we live in. That's of course driving straight through. So with kids, it's more like about 14 hours. We've done the overnight drive and it's horrible and it sucks. You know, the kids get enough sleep that they're energized, but they're grumpy as well. And it just kind of ruins the day. So I also have problems. I've had 2 blood clots, deep vein thrombosis in my leg, and so for me sitting is really hard, so we decided to break it up. So the first day we left on a Wednesday, we drove to Kamloops and we spent the night there. We did hit an accident outside of Banff that took about an hour to get around, so it took a while. You know, we packed a lot of our own snacks and lunches and stuff and stopped along the way. We checked into our hotel and then we actually went to Red Robin. It's one of our family's favorite restaurants and we don't have one anywhere near us. So whenever we have the chance to go, we go. And because it was actually my birthday that day, I got dinner for free, which was awesome. So we ate dinner, went to bed, and the next morning we were up bright and early. We stayed at the Holiday Inn in Kamloops, which was a really good hotel, and they accommodated a family our size in one room, which is always a bonus. And we got up early, had breakfast, and hit the road. And we drove and drove and drove. We made it to, I think it was Chilliwack, where there was a superstore just off the highway, and we pulled over, had a bathroom break, and we actually picked up groceries because we were supposed to be in an Airbnb for the next couple days. And we had a cooler with us and we wanted to get our groceries because there is no superstore in Victoria. There's one just outside, but it was nowhere near where we were gonna be going, and we knew groceries would be a lot more expensive on the island. So we packed up and then we headed in to catch the ferry. So if you're not familiar with the area, you know, we call it like the Vancouver Victoria Ferry, but it's Tawasin is the name of the ferry terminal in Vancouver, and Swartz Bay is the one closest to Victoria on the island. And we were booting it, trying to get to this ferry, and we were about 20 minutes away, and my daughter threw up. So we had to pull over, clean her up, clean the car up, and then we're like, oh, we're not gonna make this ferry. And typically it's like a 2-hour wait in between ferries. Thankfully, there was one the next hour, and so we thought, okay, we'll just have to wait an hour, we'll eat our lunch while we're waiting there. But as we pulled up to like the ticket, she said, you know, they're just starting loading, you might be able to get it. And so we paid and they like assigned a lane for you to go to. We went to the lane and we drove straight on the ferry, one of the last cars. So we made it onto the 1 o'clock ferry, which was amazing. Getting to Vancouver Island, your options are pretty limited. There's ferries from like Port Angeles and Washington State or from Vancouver, or you have to fly in. It is a cost, and it is quite costly. One of the things about the island. So we made it onto the ferry. We had lunch with us that we had packed. We just kind of explored a bit, and then we sat outside and enjoyed the scenery. We enjoyed the sun and just experienced the ocean and being on the ocean. When we got to Victoria, we came off and we immediately went to where my mom was working. So we had not told anyone that we were going on this trip. Our kids, we told them the day before that we were going, and we gave them a list of things they needed to pack, but they still didn't know where we were going. They had to guess along the way to figure out where we were going. And we had not told anyone, my family or anything, that we were coming either. So we showed up at my mom's work and completely surprised her, which was fantastic. It was so much fun. She was just totally shocked. We spent a little bit of time with her, and then she was about to start work. And so we left and we drove over to the Airbnb that we were gonna stay in. Now, we had been unable to find, we looked for weeks, a hotel that could accommodate our family within our budget and kind of the areas we wanted to be in. And so we said, because it was the May long weekend coming up, everything was just busy. And so we said, okay, let's look at Airbnb, which we've never stayed at before. We found one. We chose it because it had a good location, it had space, and it had a $200 cleaning fee. And we thought, okay, this is gonna make this place really clean and we'll be okay. So I got there, we all came inside, and everything seemed okay until my son went to the bathroom, and the bathtub was had dirt and stuff and water in it, and I was kind of like, oh. And so I sent the host a message. She responded back, that's odd, I'll call the plumber. But it got us thinking, and we kind of looked around, and the place was really dirty. There was yogurt lid containers stuck to the couch and crumbs everywhere, spider webs, dead bugs stuck to the wall. It was pretty gross. And so I sent the host a message, and she said it had been professionally cleaned a couple days before, and she'd been in there. She was actually quite rude. And she told us, if you don't like it, leave. So we ended up, Airbnb was actually great. We worked through them, and they were able to give us a full refund. They offered to find us somewhere else, and we said, no, that's okay. We'll find something on our own. And we did. We left. Because technically we did not stay there, the reservation was canceled, I wasn't able to leave feedback on this Airbnb's page. So if you are looking at an Airbnb in the Mount Doug area in Victoria, send me a message. I'll tell you the host name to avoid. She was actually really rude, and she sent me a message later on too that was quite rude. So we were scrambling to find somewhere to stay, and I had found a place that had kind of mixed reviews we looked at before and decided not to go there. And it was the Travelodge in Sidney, which is a small town just outside Victoria. But it was all we could find, and so I called, and they had space, and so we booked it. We went right over there to check in, and it ended up being perfect for us. The room was spotless, and just the whole layout worked really well for our family. It had a full-size fridge, it had the table, the dishes, it had a pull-out sofa plus 2 beds, and so it worked out just really, really well for us. It was a little more run down in the hallways, and it was near the highway, but it also was by 2 grocery stores, and the staff were really nice. The laundry was totally sketchy because that first day I had to go do the laundry because my daughter, of course, had thrown up. It was 1 washer, 1 dryer in this small, dark, closed-in room, and it wasn't very clean, so that wasn't great. But the rest of the stay was fantastic, and it worked out so much better. It worked out actually a little bit cheaper than staying at the Airbnb, and they had breakfast included, which was a bonus for us. So we went back, we finally checked into this hotel, we kind of unpacked, unwind, it had been a long day, and went to bed. The next morning we got up and we headed to let the kids explore the ocean and to go to the beach. So we went to Cabarrot Bay, which is at the end of Sinclair Road, I think it's called, just down from the University of Victoria. It's a place I went to as a child quite often. I was really excited to take my kids there. They have a massive playground. Some of the stuff is from the time when I was a child, and a lot of it's new. And then it has the beach, and it's in a cove, and so you could see the sailboats in the ocean, and man, the kids had a great time. It wasn't super warm, so we didn't take swimsuits or anything, but they had the best time just exploring and poking in the sand and playing in the sand. It was really great. So we spent a good deal of time there. And then we drove kind of along well, back up by the university. We went past 2 houses I used to live in, and we went to a playground that's right by Henderson Park. Maybe it's called Henderson Park, right by the rec center there. There's a great chip trail there, and it's a playground, again, I had been to as a child a lot. And they actually had the same like racing horse things that they had when I was a child. It was so fun to put my kids on there, and there was only one empty seat, and to take a picture, because there's pictures of me and my brother and stuff growing up on these horses. So that was really fun. It's a nice little park if you're looking for something kind of low-key but nice. There's bathrooms that are even heated there. The chip trail is great. Then we went down to Willows Beach, which is another very famous kind of beach in Victoria. And the kids just played in the sand again. We had our lunch with us, and they just played. My husband, they went over to the rocks. They found a really big crab, which was really exciting. My mom joined us there for a little while and kind of hung out, and we just caught up, and the kids just had such a great time with the ocean, which is exactly what we wanted them to experience. Then my mom had to go, she had a commitment, and so once we were kind of done lunch, we headed along like the Dallas Road area, which is a beautiful scenic road, to Beacon Hill Park, and we went to the petting zoo. This is a place I've been to many, many times as a child, and it's a really fun place to go. Entrance is by donation, and so it's not expensive, and you can pet the goats, you can brush them, and my kids just had so much fun with these goats and playing with them. Just a really unique experience. Once we were done, we walked around the gardens for a little while. My kids weren't super big into that, so we just kind of showed them a little bit, and then we had a snack and we headed into downtown Victoria. Now this was a Friday, and it was probably around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so it was quite busy. Victoria is quite a congested, busy place. Not in the same way Vancouver, Toronto kind of thing, but it's definitely compact. And we walked along the main tourist area, which is Government Street. They have tourist shops and Rogers chocolates. So we went into a few of those, picked up some chocolates, some souvenirs. Our family, every year, we buy a new ornament to put on our Christmas tree that represents something from our family or somewhere we've been from that year. And so we picked up a Christmas ornament for our tree that showed Vancouver Island on it. And the kids picked up some postcards, things like that. And then we walked down to the Inner Harbor. Now, at this point, the kids were kind of like, meh. They weren't impressed by the Empress or the legislature. They weren't really into seeing the musicians or the buskers. And they were just starting to come out, like it was still a little early. And so we said, okay, it was kind of getting to dinner time. And so we ended up driving over to Fisherman's Wharf, which is a place I'd actually never been to before. I didn't even know where it was, which is kind of funny. But beautiful, bright colored buildings. It's literally a wharf, it's on the ocean. And my mom met us there, and we went to Barb's Fish and Chips. Now, growing up in Victoria, fish and chips is something I miss so much. Every time my mom comes to visit, I'm like, is there any way you can bring fish and chips? I love fish and chips. We used to go to, I don't think that place is open anymore, but the other one we went to sometimes was, it's in Fernwood, Haltane Fish and Chips. I think that one's still open. But we went to Barb's. It was expensive. That was like a splurge meal for our trip, but it was really good too. And we just sat by the ocean, and there were seagulls, and again, just enjoying that kind of ocean atmosphere and environment. Once we were done, we hopped over to one of my aunts and had a quick visit with her. I'm not going to share pictures of that just for privacy, but we did some pictures and a quick visit. And then we ended up heading back to Sydney and kind of calling it a night. I had meant to drive up Mount Tommy, and I completely forgot. So if you're in Victoria, that's definitely a place to go, and you can get a great view of the surrounding area. So we went back, had showers, cleaned up from the beach, and went to bed. So the next morning, Saturday, we went to Shaw Centre for the Salish Sea, I believe it's called. It's the aquarium that's actually right in Sydney, right near, not far from the pier, like right on the waterfront. And they were fantastic there. The place was almost empty. There were a lot of staff around. They had coloring, they had book readings going on. They had interactive exhibits. There was one I think she was a university student, who was sharing research about the sounds that fish make, and so my kids got to hear those. We got to see fish and octopus and just see a whole bunch of different things. And then they actually had a touch pool, and so the kids got to touch like the sea stars, used to be called starfish, and it's like sea cucumber type things and anemones, I think. My brain's not working, but all those things they got to touch, which they loved. That was really cool. So we spent a little while there and kind of looking at different exhibits and trying different things out, and just a really neat experience. Looking at the jellyfish was cool too. And then after that, we just walked along kind of the Sydney waterfront there, and we walked down the pier. There were people catching crabs, so they would like lower their traps from the pier and then pull them up and take the crabs out. And so that was really neat to see. And we just kind of spent some time just being near the ocean and again, experiencing the ocean. We went back to our hotel, did another load of laundry quickly, had lunch, and then we were off on another surprise that we had planned for the kids. So originally we had planned to go whale watching. We thought, how cool would it be to go see some whales, some orcas? And we had planned to go Friday morning. We had found, I believe it was Prince of Wales. They were offering quite a deep discount because it was the beginning of the season. But then I started, after I booked, to have some kind of second thoughts about this. 3 hours, small boat, lots of people on it with our young kids. And I thought, maybe this isn't the best idea. So I ended up canceling it shortly before we went. And the lady I talked to, she said, the weather's not looking good. We're probably gonna cancel it anyways. So it worked out that way. But then I found eco tours that were done out of Brentwood Bay, and it just sounded so much more of kind of what our family was looking for. It was to see, they said sometimes they see like eagles, seals, otters, sometimes whales too, but it was a lot more low-key, it was shorter. And so we decided to book that, and it was absolutely the right decision for our family. We were the only people on the boat with our captain, whose name was Guy. It was a small boat. It was very personalized. The kids had space to kind of move around, to ask questions. It was perfect for a young family. And we didn't see any of those things that they said, and that's okay. That happens sometimes. But they did bring crabs and starfish that we were able to see and touch again, which was really exciting. And just have that experience of being kind of on a small boat out on the ocean. My kids, when the other boats went by real fast, there was like the wake from it, and they thought that was the best thing ever. We did stop also at a little beach where it's very hard to get to by land. It's pretty much a boat only access, and they had some time to explore there and find seashells and little crabs, and it was just a really unique experience that worked very, very well for young children. And it was affordable as well because our youngest 2 children, I want to say, were free. And that was through the Brentwood Bay Marina. I'll try and put some links below for the eco tour and for other links as well, because it was a great experience. Once that was done, we went back and just stopped at one of the grocery stores near our place, picked up some dinner items, and ate at the hotel. We really, on this trip, we're trying to keep as budget friendly as possible. We typically ate out once a day for the most part, and made food the rest of the time. We packed up, we cleaned up, and the kids still wanted to go swimming. It was an outdoor swimming pool at the Travelodge, and it wasn't that warm, but they went in it. And then we went to bed and got ready to head out for the next day. So Sunday morning, we got up, we had breakfast, we checked out of the hotel quite early, before 9 in the morning, went to visit one of my aunts. It was really nice to see her, and one of my cousins was there too. Then we met up with my mom, and she had planned to come up island with us, but she wasn't feeling well. And so we ended up saying goodbye there, and then we headed up island. Now, one of my sisters was actually in Nanaimo, and I had messaged her the night before saying, hey, guess what, we're here. Let's meet up. Well, we're coming up there. And she messaged me while we were driving saying that they were actually coming back a little earlier than they thought. And so we decided to meet at a park in Duncan. We went to Superstore, grabbed some stuff for lunch, and met at this park for a little while. And the kids got some time to eat and to spend time with her and her husband. And that was a nice visit. After that, we continued up. We went to Rathtrevor Beach in Parksville. It's a very famous beach where the tide goes really far out. By this point though, it was really hot. We were hot and the tide was really far out, and we thought, let's maybe come back a little later. And so I had actually found a Groupon for mini golf and some bumper cars. And it was in Parksville. I think it's called Riptide. And so we decided to go do that. Now, I had completely forgotten that it was the long weekend. And so the place was insanely busy. I wish we had gone a different day. But we went and we ended up only doing 9 of the 18 holes of mini golf because it was so hot and it was so busy that we were waiting a long time to start at each new hole. So we called it quits after 9, and the kids did their bumper cars. And then we actually grabbed some ice cream because we were hungry and hot, and we headed out of there. We drove up to Qualicum, which is where we were supposed to be spending the night. We thought we'll check in and then we'll go back to Rathtrevor maybe and kind of enjoy the beach there. Unfortunately, when we got to our accommodation, it was really run down, kind of weird policies. And when I went to fill out the paperwork, they had given us the wrong room. We'd reserved a 3-bedroom cabin and they'd given us a 1-bedroom. And the place was supposed to have a pool and water slide, and they were closed, and it took some kind of back and forth, but I was like, we can't fit in a 1-bedroom, like 1 bed for all of us. And so they finally refunded the money, but then we were left again with nowhere to stay. And again, if you want the name of that place in Qualicum Beach where not to stay, I've since read some pretty miserable reviews of the place. Send me an email and I can let you know the name. So we had some friends up in the Courtney Comox area that we wanted to visit. And so we found a Holiday Inn Express up there that they were fantastic. They were so friendly. They had a family room available. And so we snagged it up and booked it. We drove up there and we talked with our friends, and they invited us to come over for dinner. And so we went over there for dinner and hung out. These are friends we've known for many years. It was such a fun visit. They also have 5 children and they homeschool now. And like, I've known the husband since we were like teenagers together. And so it was just a really, really fun visit. Our kids had a great time there. And then we went to the hotel and they had a pool with a water slide. And so the kids were desperate to go. And so we said, okay. And it was really fun. It was pretty warm in there too, which was nice. They had a great time at that hotel. And then we went to bed. Their family room, they had like a king-size bed in the bedroom and then 2 queen-size beds in a separate room, kind of the main room, which was really nice for us. And I wish we had had more time in the area because Courtney and Comox area are just gorgeous. It was right by the ocean. One of the people who worked at the hotel told us that there was a playground and walking paths outside, and I really wish we'd had more time because it was just gorgeous. So Monday morning we checked out of the hotel. We went over to Coombs, which is totally a tourist trap, goats on the roof, but it's really cool to see. It was kind of drizzly and not very nice, so we didn't stay too long. We did go to the bookstore there though. That was amazing. I wish I could have spent hours going through all the books they had there, but we didn't have a lot of time. So we left Coombs, we drove over to Port Alberni. We stopped at the No Frills there, again, bought groceries for the next few days, picked up some lunch, and then we headed out. And we went to Cathedral Grove, which, if you didn't know, Canada has a rainforest. Surprise! It's a temperate one, but it's a place I've always wanted to go visit. And again, it was crazy busy, and so we only spent a very short amount of time. We just did part of one little loop. I'd love to go back there someday though. Just amazing trees, amazing greenery and scenery. We continued on and we went to Pacific Sands Resort in Tofino. This was totally our splurge accommodation. It was expensive, but the reason we decided to do that was, one, it was right on a beach, but also trying to find any accommodation for our family size is difficult. I found that really challenging in Tofino. It had a full kitchen, which was awesome, like stove and oven, which is what we needed to cook. It also had access to a barbecue, had a big table, a living room, and it had a room with a king-size bed, a room with 2 queen beds, a pull-out sofa, and 2 bathrooms and a balcony. It was the lodge 2-bedroom suite. They do have an accommodation that's larger with like bunk beds, but I felt like I want to say the balcony was off the bedroom, and I thought that wasn't probably the best idea with little kids, and so we stayed in this one. It was a pet-friendly one, and there was animal hair on like the couch and the carpet, but the rest of the place was very, very clean, like immaculately clean, and again, right on the beach. It was really good. So the beach at Cox Bay, where the hotel is not a swimming beach, it's a surfing beach. So we got ready and we went over to Mackenzie Beach, which is a more family style beach, a little more mellow. It was still rainy and drizzly, so we kind of checked out the beach and some tide pools, but we didn't really go too far into the water because it was cold. Then we went over to Tofino, which is a food truck that I've heard a lot about, and we tried the food there. It was really good. Very expensive though, but good food. We came back to the hotel and we kind of called it a night. And then the next morning, we got up and we went and explored the tide pools on Cox Bay and the beach, which was really, really neat. It was just so fun to see some of the things we had actually seen in the aquarium, to see them out on the ocean and to explore. We came back and had lunch. And then we went back to the beach. The sun had come out, it had warmed up, and the sand was like soft and warm. And we just had a great time. The kids played in the sand. The first true experience just playing in warm sand. And we spent hours there just relaxing and hanging out, which was a lot of fun. The kids did some wave jumping, the older ones, but they didn't go very far out. Again, the waves were really larger, so it wasn't really a swimming beach. We ended up after that driving into Tofino, having a look around the town. We went to, I think it's called The Shed, and we picked up a burger to like all kind of try. It wasn't very good. And then we went over to Sobo to pick up a salmon fish chowder that they had. I bought it in like a container. It was kind of like the best option for our family size. But when I got back to the hotel, I realized that it was frozen. It wasn't just cold. So we ended up just making like scrambled eggs for the kids and for us, and we had the soup the next day. But the soup was amazing. It was so delicious. I'm definitely gonna make it one day because I found the recipe. Then when we had checked into the hotel, they'd given us a s'mores kit with like the graham cracker and marshmallow and chocolate, and they had big communal fires going every night. And so we went down to one of them and we made s'mores, which was such a fun experience. And it was really just to be by the ocean, to kind of see the ocean but have this fire, kind of like a camping vibe, really kind of relaxed atmosphere. It was a lot of fun. We went into the main office of the hotel and we picked up some hot chocolate and looked through. They have books and movies there. They have a few convenience items as well, but not a whole lot of them. The next day we again went out after breakfast and checked out the tide pools as the tide was just kind of coming in, and just explored, which was really fun again. We had lunch, we had that chowder, which was amazing. And then we had kind of our second big activity surprise for the kids, which was surfing lessons. We used Tofino Surf School. I had contacted them and kind of told them our situation and the ages and asked if they could accommodate us, and they said yes. And so my husband and my 3 older boys had surfing lessons. My daughter had a wetsuit and kind of was listening in on some of the lessons, but she didn't want to go in the water, which I wasn't sure if she would want to. We knew that. I had originally planned to try as well, but it didn't quite work out. And it wouldn't have worked out kind of tag teaming anyways, because someone had to watch my son and it just wouldn't have worked. But they got the amazing opportunity to try not only surfing, but surfing in Tofino. Like, that's such a big thing. It was my first time in Tofino. I've always wanted to try surfing there. Another time I will try. Once we were done there, we went back to our hotel and we headed out to the beach again and spent some time in the sand. Again, it was nice, it was warm, it was fun, just a really good kind of relaxing time. One of the important things about this trip was I really wanted to have it as low-key and kind of laid back as possible. Not just because I wanted it to be that way for kind of the memories and just to take our time and enjoy, but also because I've struggled with really bad anxiety since the birth of my last child, and I needed to do it for my mental health. I needed a very slow, trip with a lot of open doors. We could go do this, we could go do that, and not a super rigid schedule. So we did that, and then we cooked dinner on the barbecue that they had available and had dinner and started getting ready because we were leaving the next morning. I have to tell you, our time in Tofino was so amazing. Absolutely loved it, and we will be going back at some point. It's just such a unique place. So Thursday morning, we checked out of the hotel and we made a quick stop at Long Beach in Tofino. I just wanted to have a quick look. The weather had kind of changed. It wasn't very nice out. It was kind of rainy and cool. But we went down to Ucluelet. We went over to the lighthouse. I want to say Aphrodite. Oh, I can't remember the name. I'll try and link it below if I remember. The lighthouse there, and had a look at it and read a bit about the history. And then we stopped in at a little tourist shop, and I'll try and find the name, or maybe a map of it, because they actually had really decent prices, and I picked up one souvenir there, a little starfish that is beautiful, and I'll show you a picture because it's actually made by a local artist who cast them, and so that's why it looks so realistic, just like what we had the opportunity to touch while we were there. And so I wanted a little keepsake, and they had lots of other little things too, and the kids picked up a few things. Then we drove back through Port Alberni. Now the road was actually fully closed for certain times of the day, so we had to time it, so we missed the hour that it was closed, but we were able to get through with just alternating traffic, which was nice. We were gonna stop in Port Alberni for lunch, but our youngest was asleep and we thought we might as well just keep going. So we went all the way into Parksville. We found a huge playground, amazing playground, right on the beach, and I'll try and put the link of the name down below. But it was huge. It had bathrooms and it had the beach right there, but it also had a spray park. It had multiple play structures that were both regular ones and inclusive ones. We found a table, we had our lunch there, and the kids played for a couple hours. It was just a beautiful spot, really fun. Then we went into Nanaimo and we checked into our hotel there. The hotel was beautiful lobby, amazing staff, but the room was absolutely horrible. They had 2 beds in like the main area, and then they had another bed in a separate bedroom with like this jacuzzi tub in the middle of the room, and the room was all inside, so there was no windows, so it was super dark and it wasn't very clean, and it just wasn't a good hotel room. But the worst thing was that anytime anyone above us ran like the water, they flushed the toilet, they had a shower, it was so loud in our room. Unbelievable. It kept us awake all night long. And when I told the desk, when we checked out, they said they'd never even heard this complaint before, which is amazing. So everyone was just feeling kind of tired. The weather wasn't great. We had planned to go explore Nanaimo a little bit, but it just didn't happen. So we went over to Costco, kind of perused Costco for a while, picked up some dinner, picked up some stuff we needed for lunch the next day, came back to the hotel, ate, and essentially just went to bed. So the next morning we had our breakfast and we checked out and we took the ferry. We went to Departure Bay, which is like one of the 2 Nanaimo ferry ports, and took the ferry over to Horseshoe Bay, which is kind of like a North Vancouver ferry terminal. And the ferry ride was really nice. We just kind of hung out, spent some time, most of the time outside. The weather wasn't great, it was raining, but we tried to just be outside and enjoy our last little bit of ocean that we could. The kids went through the gift shop on the ferry and picked a few little things up, and then we were gone. And as soon as we got to Horseshoe Bay, it was pouring with rain, traffic was horrible, and it was just a really slow go until we got to just outside Alder Grove. It came to a standstill because there was an accident. We spent probably about half an hour, 45 minutes trying to wait it out, and then we ended up just exiting because it was crazy. We decided we would just go stop somewhere, have our lunch, and that's what we did. And then when we came back through, can't remember the name of that place, back onto the highway that way, and kind of avoided the accident part, and we're able to kind of go. Now with the rain, there had been some flash flood warnings, and there were times when driving to Kamloops, the rain was super heavy. We stopped in Merritt for a bathroom break, and it was just pouring with rain, but we finally made it to Kamloops around dinner time. We actually stopped and picked up some pizza and took it back to the hotel because we didn't want to have to go out again. Once we checked in, I wasn't feeling very well. I had food poisoning. My kids really wanted to go swimming though, so we went down to the swimming pool and spent a little bit of time there, and they had a lot of fun. It was a fun pool. The hotel was absolutely packed, and we actually ran into someone we knew, which was totally sporadic. And then we went to bed. Now, I was really sick through the night, unfortunately. The next morning we got up. My husband took the kids to go have breakfast. I was still very sick. And he was like, do you want to wait? Should we go? And I said, no, I really just want to get home. And so we left like around before 9 in the morning. And we had to make a few stops along the way, but we were trying to just get home kind of mid-afternoon time. And just outside Revelstoke, about 45 minutes outside, the highway sign suddenly changed saying the highway was closed. And we thought, oh no. And so we pulled over in Revelstoke because that's where they closed it. And they had hoped to open it at 1, then they changed it to 3, and then they changed it to 5. We ended up spending 6.5 hours in Revelstoke wandering around. It was bad weather. It was, as the day kind of went on, it got more and more busy till it was just absolutely packed. There was nothing to do. We thought about backtracking and going a different way, but it would have taken, 6-8 hours that way extra. And we thought about getting a hotel room, which in the long run we should have done. But again, we just wanted to get home and we were trying to stay on budget, and so we didn't. The highway finally opened just after 5 in the evening, and it was just so slow. It took so long to get to Golden. We thought, okay, the highway's open, let's go. But it quickly came to a standstill, and we were stopped for a long time. And then it was like 30 kilometers an hour. It was quite the nightmare driving home. The one thing that we were grateful for is we had picked up some Subway in Revelstoke to eat later on, because when we got to Golden, the place, like everyone who had been waiting at Revelstoke was suddenly all in Golden at the same time and hungry. And so we stopped for a bathroom break and we left right away. It was just so congested and busy, and ate in the car and drove all the way. Finally around Banff, the highway finally cleared up, and drove home. And we ended up getting home after 1 a.m. in the morning. Planned to be home like around 4, and we got in the afternoon. We got home after 1 in the morning. So it was quite a horrible drive home, and a lot of sitting and waiting around. So true to mom life, I feel like this was a very, very quick kind of rundown of what we did. We ended up being gone for 11 days. It was exactly what our family needed. Our kids truly experienced the ocean and the magic of Vancouver Island. And it wasn't that expensive. We talked about taking our camping gear as well and doing camping to save on costs, but it just wasn't practical for us without space to transport all of it. So hopefully this has given you some inspiration if you have been thinking of a place to go or wanting to go. Canada is such an amazing country, and it is expensive to travel sometimes within our country, so I don't think people do it as much. Hopefully this has inspired you to go check out Vancouver Island, because it was just magical. It was a amazing, amazing adventure. I hope this finds you having a great day. Take care.